The concept of real facts confirmed in the Bible refers to historical, archaeological, or scientific data that align with biblical narratives, suggesting the Bible's potential as a reliable source of factual information, not just religious teachings. This concept is significant because it bridges the gap between faith and reason, offering believers and skeptics alike a common ground to explore the validity of biblical accounts. By establishing the Bible's credibility through verifiable facts, this concept enhances its role in historical and scientific discussions. An example of this is the discovery of the ancient city of Jericho and the corresponding archaeological findings that suggest it was destroyed in a manner consistent with the biblical account in the book of Joshua. This aligns with the narrative of the walls falling after the Israelites encircled the city. Another example is the mention of the Hittites. Once thought to be a biblical myth, they were later confirmed through archaeological discoveries in modern Turkey, affirming their existence as recorded in the Old Testament. Opinions supporting this idea often come from scholars and theologians who argue that these confirmations enhance the Bible's historical credibility and can strengthen faith by showing the Bible's relevance in the real world. Prominent figures in biblical archaeology and history often cite these findings as evidence that supports the integration of historical and theological study. However, there are challenges and controversies associated with this concept. Critics argue that not all biblical accounts have been confirmed, and some dismiss certain archaeological findings as mere coincidences rather than proof. Furthermore, the interpretation of archaeological data can vary, leading to disputes over whether some findings truly confirm biblical narratives or are simply parallel events. There is also the perspective that focusing too much on factual confirmation might overshadow the spiritual and moral teachings of the Bible, which some argue are more crucial than historical accuracy. This aspect connects to the main topic by framing the Bible as not just a religious book, but a historical document that interacts with real-world events and cultures. It influences how individuals view the Bible's role, not only as a spiritual guide, but also as a source of historical knowledge. This perspective can open dialogue between different fields, such as theology, history, and science, and encourage a more nuanced understanding of the Bible's place in the contemporary world. Through this multidimensional approach, the Bible can be appreciated for its multifaceted contributions to society. The historical authenticity of biblical locations refers to the verification of places mentioned in the Bible through archaeological findings and historical research. This concept is significant because it serves as tangible evidence that supports the narratives found in the Bible, bridging the gap between faith-based accounts and historical fact. By confirming the existence of these locations, the reliability of biblical texts as historical documents is enhanced, inviting both believers and skeptics to reconsider their perspectives on the Bible's narratives. A key example of this concept is the discovery of the ancient city of Jericho. Excavations have revealed walls that collapsed outward, aligning with the biblical account of the Israelites capturing the city. Similarly, the existence of the Pool of Bethesda, mentioned in the Gospel of John, was confirmed when archaeologists unearthed its remains north of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. These examples provide compelling physical evidence that some biblical locations do exist as described. Supporters of this idea argue that such discoveries affirm the Bible's role not only as a spiritual guide, but also as a historical record. Scholars and theologians often express optimism about the potential for ongoing archaeological efforts to continue uncovering more biblical locations, which they believe will further substantiate biblical narratives. However, challenges and controversies persist. Critics may point out that the discovery of a location does not necessarily confirm the specific events that are described in the Bible as having occurred there. Additionally, some argue that the interpretations of archaeological findings can be subjective, heavily influenced by the researcher's biases. There is also the contention around sites that have yet to be discovered or verified, leading skeptics to caution against overgeneralizing the significance of such evidence. This point of historical authenticity ties deeply into the broader discussion on the Bible's credibility. Confirming biblical locations strengthens the argument for the Bible as a legitimate historical document, influencing discussions on its validity and application in contemporary studies of history and theology. Furthermore, it encourages interdisciplinary collaboration as archaeology, history, and religious studies come together to paint a fuller picture of the ancient world. In the grand narrative of real facts confirmed in the Bible, the historical authenticity of location serves as a cornerstone, inviting continual exploration and debate on the Bible's place within both historical and modern contexts. The concept of archaeological discoveries supporting Scripture refers to the physical evidence uncovered through archaeological excavations and studies that align with narratives, events, or cultural practices described in the Bible. This body of evidence plays a pivotal role in bridging ancient texts with tangible historical records, providing a richer understanding of historical contexts in which biblical events reportedly occurred. The significance of archaeological discoveries in supporting Scripture lies in their ability to lend credibility to biblical accounts, thus reinforcing the historical reliability of these ancient texts. This is particularly important in discussions about the Bible, as evidentiary support can either affirm the narratives or lead to new interpretations about the historical and cultural settings of its stories. A notable example of such discoveries is the Tel Dan Stele, an inscribed stone slab found in northern Israel. It contains the earliest known reference to the House of David, corroborating the existence of King David and providing a link to the biblical descriptions of his dynasty. Another example is the Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of Jewish texts found near Qumran. These scrolls include some of the oldest known manuscripts of biblical books, offering insight into the text's authenticity and consistency through time. Supporters of the idea that archaeological finds confirm biblical narratives often cite these examples as evidence that the Bible contains historically accurate information. They argue that such discoveries not only validate the spiritual and cultural influence of the Bible, but also its role as a document of historical significance. However, this concept is not without its challenges and controversies. Critics argue that archaeological interpretations can be subjective, often influenced by the researcher's own biases or preconceived beliefs. Additionally, some discoveries have been debated or questioned, as alternative explanations or theories sometimes arise, which can downplay their suggested links to the Bible. Moreover, the absence of evidence for certain biblical events, or the discovery of data that contradicts traditional narratives, can lead to skepticism. This point interconnects with broader discussions on the reliability of sacred texts and influences debates on faith, history, and the historical method. While archaeological findings provide compelling visual anchors to biblical stories, they also encourage deeper inquiry into the textual, cultural, and historical context of the Bible, prompting a dialogue between faith and empirical investigation. Thus, archaeological discoveries serve as an invaluable tool in both confirming and critically analyzing the facts presented in the Scriptures. Scientific insights found in biblical texts refers to the idea that certain passages within the Bible anticipate or align with modern scientific understanding. This notion suggests that the Bible, beyond being a spiritual and moral guide, also contains knowledge that aligns with scientific truths, which can strengthen the belief in its divine inspiration. This point is significant in relation to the main topic of real facts confirmed in the Bible, as it attempts to bridge the gap between faith and science. By highlighting scientific insights in biblical texts, believers and scholars argue that these ancient scriptures are not just spiritually profound, but also contain advanced understanding that predates contemporary scientific discoveries. One example often cited is the description of the Earth's suspension in space, found in Job 26:7, where it states, "He spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing." This can be seen as an early description reminiscent of Earth's position in the cosmos, predating the understanding that came much later in human history. Another example is the Levitical codes regarding hygiene and diet, which can be viewed as early insights into practices promoting health and hygiene. such as quarantine and dietary restrictions that align with modern public health principles. Supporters of this idea often argue that these examples reflect an inherent wisdom in the Bible, suggesting a divine influence given the temporal context in which these texts were written. However, there are potential challenges and controversies associated with this concept. Critics argue that such interpretations can be the result of confirmation bias, where interpretations are retrofitted into modern understanding, asserting that these texts were more metaphorical or poetic rather than intentionally scientific. The concept of scientific insights in biblical texts influences other aspects of the main topic by adding a dimension of credibility to the Bible's authenticity and relevance. This contributes to ongoing dialogues between religious belief and scientific inquiry, encouraging a more integrated approach to understanding the world. However, it also raises questions about the interpretative processes applied to ancient texts and the inherent subjectivity involved. While some may see divine foresight, others might view the correlations as coincidental or purely metaphorical. Ultimately, these insights invite thoughtful consideration of the intersections between ancient wisdom and modern science, offering a platform for both believers and skeptics to explore the depth and breadth of biblical literature.